how to eat. Another common function of human life that seems that nobody would need any instruction in. It may come as a surprise to many people, but there's actually more to eating than the emphatic ingurgitation of wanton masses of contentious food elements into the system that inevitably cause a series of gastric natural disasters to ensue in the tissues. So today, what we're going to do in order to avoid that calamity is we're going to go through how to eat and give you the principles and protocols that you need to live a healthy, happy, and wonderful eating life. How you doing, everyone? Eli Martyr here. Welcome back to the FreeMelon Society. You can see that I'm in a new digs today. I'm spending 2 weeks with the Graham family. So Douglas and Rosalind Graham have very, very generously allowed me to come and visit them. So we're spending some time here, and on this very stormy and rainy New Year's Day, I thought I'd come in here and record a little bit of a lecture. So that's what we're doing. And maybe if I'm lucky, we can record some other things during my stay here. So for now, let's get into this topic of how to eat. And I know it sounds like another typical insulting topic that seems mundane and no one needs to be coached in any particular way. And I've mentioned these principles in many other videos before, but I don't think I have one reference video specifically on this topic that deals with it in depth so that people can come and reference whenever they want. So that's what I'm going to do. I just wanted to consolidate it all into one video for you so that it's easy. So let's quickly talk about the format of this lecture. First thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the factors that enhance digestive power. Then we're going to talk about the factors that impair digestive power. And then we're going to recapitulate with a list of rules for eating. And then that's going to be it. All right. So without any further ado, let's get into the lecture for today. So if I want to know what it means to eat and to eat properly, then I want to know what the object of eating is. So the object of eating, very important, is to supply the body with all the elements that it needs. Okay, that's number one. Number two, we want to feed the body and supply all the elements that it needs in a way that ensures perfect digestion. So we need to furnish the body with everything that it needs, but we also need to do that in a way, a style, a fashion that ensures no digestive incompatibilities. We need to do it in a way that guarantees, or at least makes as optimal as possible, perfect digestion. Okay, so let's get into the factors that enhance digestive secretions, which is another way of saying enhance digestive power. Okay, the very first thing, of course, is hunger. When I say hunger, I'm not talking about the human habitual routine of stuffing things into our faces at certain times in the day and the associated nagging, irritated feeling that our body gives us when we don't follow that habitual routine every day. So you break your routine a little bit and you start getting an irritated feeling like you need to eat because it's 12 o'clock. That's not necessarily what I mean. I'm also not talking about the type of hunger that you would feel after, let's just say, a very indulgent Thanksgiving Day feast. And then an hour later, half an hour later, after you apparently are full, you say, you know what? I'm hungry again. Let me have some dessert. Let me have some other super concentrated, sugary or fatty food element, whatever it is. That's not the type of hunger we're talking about. We have to make a distinction between appetite and hunger. These are two different things. I'm sure I've mentioned it in other videos. If I haven't, I have to go back and check. Then I'll have to make a dedicated video for just that topic. But anyway, appetite is something completely different. That's something that's conditioned. Kind of like Pavlov's dogs. Okay, you can have a conditioned reflex, a conditioned response. Appetite is a conditioned response. Hunger is an actual physiological signal that only gets sent to your conscious mind when the physiology detects that it actually needs food, right? And that signal is a calm, pleasurable, not intense suggestion, simple suggestion by your body that, hey, I'm ready for food. If you want, no rush, but anytime you're ready, then I can accept food, right? It's that. It's like this gentle coaxing in the direction of nutrition from the outside world. So, that being said, when you have actual true hunger, you have increased digestive power. The salivary glands will be stimulated and the digestive juices will start to flow, and you'll have quite optimal digestion. You'll have much stronger digestion when you eat in a state of actual hunger than when you eat when you're not hungry. Okay, so that's the first one, hunger. The second factor that enhances digestive secretion is pleasurable taste. You have a certain physiological makeup that determines what foods are pleasurable to your senses and which ones are not pleasurable to your senses. So when you eat something that is not pleasurable, you're not going to release the same type of digestive chemistry as when you're eating something that is pleasurable. If what you're eating cannot be eaten with relish, that when I say relish, I don't mean the condiment that you squeeze onto whatever adulterated food substance you're stuffing in your face. Okay, get those thoughts of hot dogs out of your minds, people, right? We're not talking about hot dogs and relish. Okay, no, relish, I mean with strong passion, with strong joy, with a good dispensation of happiness, okay, with relish. So if you can't eat what you're eating with relish, then you're not going to be able to release the appropriate digestive chemistry, at least in the strength that you would if you're eating something that actually harmonized with your sensitivities, your palate, your human sensitivities. So we've got hunger and pleasurable taste. What's next? The sight of food. The sight of food is very important. When we see food, we're looking at certain characteristics in our food that are going to signal to our body that what we see is actually food. So the color of the food and the shape of the food primarily. Now, it might be easy to mistake what I'm talking about here in terms of the culinary preparation of food. And of course, there is something to that. The way we prepare food can be arranged in a certain aesthetically pleasing way, such that it looks pretty, and if the smells are there and the colors are correct, then it'll inspire our eating impulse just the same as if you were to pick up some naturally fashioned food element, like an apple, an orange, a melon, whatever is food that nature provides. If it's ripe and unspoiled, it's going to have the sight of food that stimulates our digestive machinery. And on the culinary side, you can also prepare food in an intricate way that looks appealing and can have a similar effect. If your human food is moldy, discolored in any way, brown colors tend to very often indicate brown and gray, okay, fuzzy, moldy. These colors tend to be associated with rot and spoilage, and so they disincentivize us from eating. If your food is moving in any way, that should trigger our repulsion. Generally speaking, that's the case. If your food is hairy, if there are flies buzzing around your food, these are all associations and indications that the food is not meant for you because you're repulsed by it. You're disgusted by these things in your food. I guess one of the obvious ones is if your food is pleading with you to be released from your dinner plates. So if your food is trying to scramble away from you, it's probably not food. All right, what's another factor that enhances digestive power? The smell of food is just as important as the sight of food. I don't have to spend much time on this. But when rotting and spoilage produce certain sights and certain colors, they will also produce certain smells. And these smells, when they hit our olfactory senses, they're going to trigger our repulsion. Okay, so the sight and smell of food, they go together like two peas in a pod. Thoughts of food as well will stimulate your digestive machinery to get prepared to intake food. If you're thinking about food, then it means that, well, you're thinking of food. So it's possible that you're hungry and your body is going to respond. So the more you think about food, the more you're going to activate your digestive machinery. This is where thought control starts to become very, very important. So for people that are fasting or people that are just trying to control cravings, right, this is where reforming of the mind, spiritual training, right, spiritual practice, thought control, concentration exercises, these start to become very important because your instincts, all right, your natural born instincts, they're there to help you, but left to their own devices, they can just lead you to ruin. They need to be marshaled by a responsible higher government, right? Your mind. And when the instincts and habits are marshaled properly in that way, then the likelihood is that you're going to come away with fantastic health. Anyway, that's a different topic. Point is, thoughts of food, the more you dwell on them and the more emotional power you invest in those thoughts, the more your digestive machinery is going to get excited and start releasing chemistry ready to intake food. Another factor, joy, happiness, and emotional poise. These are essential for maximizing not only your absorptive capacity, but your digestive power as well. The last thing you want to be when you're eating is stressed, in an emotionally turbulent state, or having your thoughts focused on something else that requires your attention. If you can put yourself in a state of serenity when you're eating, that's going to maximize your digestion. Also, hydration. So the intake of water is going to help prime the system, particularly in the morning. So when you get up in the morning, whenever it is that you come around to eating your first meal, if you can precede the meal by drinking some water, maybe 15 minutes, even 20 minutes, 10 minutes prior to eating your meal, the water is going to help to wake up the digestive system, hydrate the tissues, and coax digestive juices to be released by the glands. Also, that intake of water combined with the thoughts of food. So you're thinking of food and you're also drinking water. Okay, so now we're combining these factors together, and that is going to help release the right digestive chemicals. Lastly, it's not only a good idea to have some water prior to the meal, but in general, hydration, all right? The more hydrated your tissues are, the better your entire overall function is going to be. Hydration couldn't be more important. But it's also very important with digestion because, of course, what are our digestive fluids made of primarily? Water, right? So if you're dehydrated, you're not going to be able to release the right potency and the right quantity of digestive fluids. Or you will be able to release the right amount of digestive fluids, but your body will have to compensate by pulling hydration away from other tissues that might need that fluid. And your body will just have to make a compromise because digestion, is important, right? Okay, and the last factor that enhances digestive power, a comfortable, stress-free environment. That's very related to joy, happiness, and emotional poise. That was more related to your internal state, all right? Everything that's happening within the mind, okay, within the person itself. But you also want to have a comfortable and stress-free environment. So someone with fantastic control over their thoughts and emotions might be in an unsupportive environment, maybe a stressful environment, an ugly environment, and might have enough control that they can eat with joy and bliss, right? Okay, it's possible, you can imagine that. But what helps even more is if you can be of that mindset, but also have a beautiful or comfortable, relaxed, stress-free environment. It's going to be much easier for most people to put themselves in a state of emotional poise when the environment itself is also stressful. When the environment itself is also non-stressful. Sorry, I misspoke. So, let's recap all those factors. We've got hunger, pleasurable state, sight of food, smell of food, the thoughts of food, joy, happiness, emotional poise, ingestion of water, comfortable, stress-free environment. These are all the factors that go towards giving you optimal digestive power. There may be some that I've missed, but these are the typical ones that you're going to be mindful of. Pay attention to this list. You're not going to go wrong. Okay, so next, let's talk about the factors that inhibit digestive power. So number one, very obviously, the absence of hunger. If you're not actually hungry, you're not going to have the best digestive power. If you have false hunger, or if you're indulging in signals that are sent by virtue of appetite alone, then you won't release the same potency of digestive juices that you would if you're actually hungry. Appetite can be stimulated by many different things: marketing, environments, food associations, people, colors, smells, all sorts of stuff. Appetite can be stimulated by all of these things. But hunger is only stimulated by one thing: whether your body needs food or not. So when you're a typical modern human slave to the senses and you're just going around and eating all the market corporate foods that are out there, then it's much more likely that you're going to respond to the appetite signals, and you're never going to be capitalizing on the power of digestive secretions because you're always doing things in your lifestyle that weaken digestive power. Never getting hungry because you're just eating all the time, right? Anyway, so we can go on about that, but let's move on. So the absence of actual hunger is one of the ways that you can weaken or impair digestive secretions. Fatigue. This is a big one. Fatigue. When you are tired, you should not eat. Typically speaking, in the evening time, everything is starting to slow down because you are a creature that lives on planet Earth, and your rhythm is tied in inextricably from the rhythm of planet Earth. And so the rhythm that we are currently in is one that optimizes itself to the periods of sunlight on the planet. And then we go to sleep when the sun goes away. In the nighttime, everything's shutting down, everything's waning down. Even if you personally, for whatever reason, might feel a bit more energetic in the evening, it still doesn't mean that your digestive power is as strong as it would be at the beginning of the day or in the middle of the day. So a general rule of thumb might be you want to avoid eating too late so as to maximize your ability to digest food. Now, I will say that there is context associated with this, right? Let's say you haven't eaten all day and your eating window starts almost in the evening time. Sure, go ahead, eat, it's fine. Because you'll probably have worked up enough of the hunger impulse throughout the day of activity, whatever it was you're doing, that you can digest all your food, no problems. If you were eating all throughout the day and then you get to the evening time and you're going to eat again, now we're running into a little bit of a vital tax issue, okay? Where your system is going to be saying, oh my God, stop, not more food, oh, more, okay. Yeah, you don't want that. But anyway, all I'm saying is that there's context and common sense associated with this general rule of thumb, right? You haven't eaten for 3 days in a row. If food makes itself available at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the evening, and you're feeling it, you're feeling the hunger, by all means eat, right? Strong hunger is a good indication that your system's ready to eat, regardless of whether it's 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the evening, okay? But as a general rule of thumb, when we do get nutrition in throughout the day or during the day at some point, then yeah, typically it's better to abstain from food later on in the evening, okay? Improperly chewed food. We want to make sure to masticate our food thoroughly. Masticate, chew up our food, right? We want to mechanically prepare the food for the next step of digestion. And since the mechanical digestion of food, the mechanical chewing of food that we do in our mouths is the only conscious step that we are able to participate in the digestive process, we want to make sure that we do that job as responsibly as possible so that the other steps that are automatic have a facilitated job at their hands. I also should say that this requirement to chew our food, it starts to become even more important for people that are eating cooked food or processed food or any other type of adulterated food substance. Why? Because when you cook and process your food, you destroy the living enzymes that are responsible for breaking the food down. Enzymes that are part and parcel and intact in the food elements itself. When you eat something that's raw and uncooked and unprocessed, all those proteins and enzymes and phytonutrients and whatever else makes up the food, all these help to digest the food for you, these living enzymes. So when you eat them, your body has less work to do itself because the food comes intact with all of those breakdown elements. But when you cook and process the food, all of those elements are destroyed. So now your body has to pick up the slack, right? And it has to use its own digestive effort. It has to use its own energy to make up for all the energy lost in the cooking process. So what I'm saying is that if you're cooking or processing your food, you want to make damn sure that you're turning that food substance into a pulp, into a liquid as much as possible, so as to make the rest of the steps much easier for the digestive process to tackle. All right, what else do we have on this list? Fear, worry, anxiety, and any other destructive human emotions. This is basically the opposite of what we talked about in the other list of factors that enhance digestive power. The polar opposite, all the destructive emotional states. I don't have to get into this too much. Common sense. All of those negative emotional states you want to avoid when you're eating, because stress will pull energy and blood flow away from the digestive machinery, and it will shuttle them to the muscular system so that you're ready to either fight or flee, defend yourself, defend your family, whatever the stressor in the environment is. Your body doesn't really know the difference between stressors of the mind and stressors of an actual objective reality. So as long as your mind and emotions are plagued with stressors, you're physiologically going to respond to that by weakening your digestive power. So for that reason, you want to avoid all of these states of mind and states of emotional being while you're eating. Physical stress and exercise. Okay. You also want to avoid being too physical while you're eating. In the modern day, we have this gym culture, this workout culture that very often encourages us to drink and even eat protein shakes and power drinks and smoothies and whatnot while we're actually exercising or in the middle of a workout. And of course, this is wrong. And well, before I just be as black and white as thing, it's wrong. Let me make that a bit more tidy. As a rule of thumb, you would want to avoid all eating during exercise or all taking in of nutrition during exercise. You want to save that until well after you're done working out or a sufficient amount of time prior to the workouts. Obviously, depending on the complexity of your meal, you would want more time between the end of the meal and when you start exercising. For simple fruit meals, yeah, you might not need that much time. Half an hour, 20 minutes or so is probably great. And longer, an hour, 2 hours or more if you've had a really complex meal. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on this, but physical activity and eating should be completely separate departments. There is a bit of an exception here when we're talking about long duration steady state conditioning or steady state exercise, as in the marathon runner. So when you get into something like that, you're gonna run into the difficulty of running out of glycogen stores in the middle of the session. So you're running a marathon, yeah, this is where the electrolyte drinks become popular, right? You might need some sort of fluid-based nutrition while you're on the run so that you can finish the race or whatever it is. Now, look, that situation is a very human thing. In any kind of natural setting, it's very rare that you're ever going to be exercising in a slow, steady state for that long. This is just a human thing that we do. Typically, this would never be an issue for anybody. As a rule of thumb, you can always take for granted that you should never eat while you're exercising. But in those one-off situations, yeah, sure, you might have to make some intellectual accommodations, okay? But that's it. That's all we need to say about that for now. If there's anything I missed on that subject or any tweaks or comments that people want to correct me on or whatever or add, then of course, just leave them in the comments below. Okay, and the last thing is pain, fever, sickness, common sense. When you're in pain, when you're sick, you've got a fever, when you're recovering from some sort of trauma or abuse, and you're in the throes of acute symptomology, eating might not be the best choice that we can make. You might want to just fast. This is what animals do. This is what humans have done from time immemorial. This is the function that nature has furnished us with to ensure the best recovery. Fasting. This is why nature pulls the eating impulse away from you when you have a fever or when you're sick. Animals will very, very often, when they're injured by combat or accident, very often they will avoid food and wait until they're in a state where they can be up on the move again, and then they'll start eating. So a general rule of thumb, when you're experiencing any of these conditions, yeah, you want to avoid meals. I might even venture to say that even in the presence of what you might call hunger, if you're in pain, I would be more likely to consciously, use some willpower to ignore the hunger impulse and just try to relax, be as comfortable as possible, and just wait it out. Let the pain subside to whatever degree it's able to subside to, and then eat later on. You're more likely to run into fewer problems ignoring the eating impulse in the presence of pain and discomfort, as you are the other way around, if you're eating too much during pain and discomfort and fever, etc., etc. It's very rare that you actually undereat in modern society, right? All lifestyle related conditions that we see that characterize the human condition right now, it's all based on indulgence and overeating. In a modern developed country, you're rarely going to run into illnesses and conditions that come about from undereating. It's not as common. Unless you have an eating disorder, that's a different thing. Even nutritional deficiencies are also very often problems of excess indulgence in some other department that your body is having to make a compensation for. So even in deficiencies, right, the answer is not just to flood yourself with that single nutrient. It's to correct other indulgences or other excesses in the lifestyle that are causing the deficiency. Okay, so summarizing, we have absence of hunger, fatigue, improperly chewed food, fear, worry, anxiety, or other destructive emotional states, physical stress, exercise, pain, fever, sickness, etc. And finally, we're going to blast through this list. Some of the items on this list are the same as the lists that we just went through, but that's okay because the repetition encourages memory retention. So we're just going to go through really quickly a rule list for proper eating. All right. Rule number 1, never eat when in pain or physical discomfort. Never eat immediately before or during physical exercise. And again, we talked about this already. We have the gym bro culture thing. But if you're asking me, in my opinion, all this is wrong. Your body's not it's so insultingly inefficient that it needs to eat during exercise. It can't wait. You think Mother Nature was stupid enough to design you like that? Come on now. Imagine two bloody bears are battling each other. Okay, they're having a squabble, they're having a fight, a territorial dispute of some sort. And they both just collapse from lack of energy because they weren't eating during their activity. Are you kidding me? I think Mother Nature's that stupid. You don't need to eat while you're exercising. One thing I will say is that you will find some experts out there who suggest that it's fine to eat immediately after exercise, immediately after you finish some sort of physically stressing activity. If you ask me, I would say that it's better to wait at least a threshold amount of time, at least 20 minutes, half an hour, even more, to be honest, after exercise before you eat. I find that it's better to let the machinery calm down completely before you actually get to eating. You might find different opinions on this, and I wouldn't go so far as to say that those are wrong. I think that you definitely can eat more immediately after a workout and be perfectly fine. Your digestive power is probably sufficient in the 10 minutes post-exercise if you wanted to eat that soon after finishing. So as much as I don't have any hard data in front of me right now to share with you on that, I would suspect that as a general rule, that the less excitation would result in better digestive power. And so I would feel more comfortable waiting at least a half hour, even an hour, right, if you wanted to be very careful after exercise before I ate a meal of some sort. Obviously, there's common sense here, okay? If your meal is 5 cherry tomatoes, come on, sure, you can eat that 5 minutes after you're done working out if you want. It's no big deal. Again, Mother Nature is very intelligent. I'm sure she equipped us with the ability to have some sort of light food, whether we're in the throes of exercise or not. I'm talking about optimal, all right? I'm trying to optimize here. You understand? So as much as you can drift outside of these general recommendations and guidelines, understand that we're just trying to be optimal, right? Giving you the best case scenario so as to ensure proper digestion. But your body is equipped to run the whole gamut, right? Okay. So obviously, common sense plays a role here, but The general idea is that you avoid eating during exercise. Okay, that's enough on that subject. Number 3, take no drinks with your meals. Keep your meals and your drinking completely separate. When I say drinking, I am not talking about alcohol, all right? And if you thought I was talking about alcohol, I'm going to have words with you after this lecture. No, I'm talking about water and maybe the fluids that are part and parcel of the meal that you're eating. So when I say take no drink with any meal, again, common sense. If your meal is a bowl of watermelon, and there's a whole bunch of watermelon juice at the bottom of the bowl, you don't have to discard the watermelon juice. You can drink the watermelon juice, okay? Come on, common sense here, all right? If orange juice drips to the bottom of your bowl when you're eating a bunch of oranges, you can eat the oranges and you can drink the orange juice, okay? What you would want to avoid, however, is water with your meals. All times in the day are acceptable for taking in hydration, water, except for immediately post-meal, during the meal, and the very moments before a meal. Water is good 15 to 20 minutes before the meal, but closer to mealtime, you want to cut it off. And then depending on the complexity of the meal, you might want to wait as little as 20 minutes, half an hour after the meal before you drink, to as long as 3 hours if we're talking about elaborate protein and fat, concentrated protein and concentrated fat combinations, and topped off with desserts and whatever, the food culture thing, right? Rule number 4, masticate all your food thoroughly. Whether you're eating raw food or cooked and processed foods, you want to chew your food thoroughly. When you're tired, you rest. Do not eat when fatigued. When you're fatigued, it means your vital force is low. So if you yourself are sleepy, well, you got to imagine, so is your stomach. Your stomach is also sleepy, and your liver, your pancreas, these are all also sleepy. So just be mindful of that. If you're sleepy, your organs are sleepy too. Don't eat between meals. It's best that you try to avoid snacking in between meals, because when we do this, we never give our digestive machinery a break. And rest and breaks are good for recultivating vitality. Yeah? And for the slaves to modern dietary culture out there, when I say don't eat between meals, yes, that includes your coffee addiction. No coffee between meals, okay? Obviously, you don't want to be drinking coffee at any point during the day. It's never a good idea. Coffee is not a good idea. Again, common sense, all right? If you haven't slept in 5 days and you're running away from a group of terrorists who are hunting people down and you're sleepy and tired and you need a pick-me-up, yeah, drink some coffee, okay? Please, the common sense applies here. But as a general rule of health and nutrition, coffee is never a good idea. It doesn't matter that people like to delude themselves into believing that 0 calories means that they can drink coffee when they're fasting. These are just delusions, human delusions, all right? When we're in the world of actual true health, we want to avoid these things, okay? So no eating between meals, no coffee between meals. I don't care if it's labeled as 0 calories, just don't do it. If you do it, of course, not going to kill you. If you have some tea in between meals, it's perfectly fine. Understand that the perspective that I'm coming from is I'm giving you the optimal ways to eat throughout the day and live throughout the day. Okay, what is truly optimal would be a complete rest between meals. That's the best, that's the optimal. So anything else is either a minor or a major departure from what is optimal. That's it, right? It's not that you're going to die. You're not going to get some disease if you do these things during the day. I'm just giving you what's optimal. Yeah. And the last rule is eat moderately of human food. If you eat moderately of corporate processed cooked foods, okay, you can still be very healthy, because eating moderately goes a very, very long way to preserving vitality. But if you eat moderately of the appropriate human foods being fruits, nuts and seeds, and leafy greens, or any of the vegetable family that are palatable in their raw state, those are the human foods. So you eat those moderately, you're looking at absolutely fantastic health. If you eat the proper human foods immoderately, in excess, that's still not a good thing, okay? So if you're thinking, okay, what's worse? Eating indulgently of good, proper human nutrition or eating moderately of bad nutrition, which one's worse? Uh, I mean, I would probably drift to the side of eating moderately of worse food, of worse human processed cooked foods, because in that case, now we're onboarding into our bodies toxic, poisonous, sometimes synthetic chemicals and other compounds that your body is going to find very offensive. So I think for that reason, I would say that it would be better to eat indulgently of clean human food, right? Because then you're only dealing with your own metabolic byproducts, which are toxic, right? But at least there's a potency to those toxins that's not as biting and caustic as the synthetic ones. Okay. Anyway, I don't know why I went down that road. At the end of the day, to be optimal, you want to eat moderately of human food. Okay, guys, that's going to be it. Thank you so much for tuning in to this lecture. If you like lectures like these, then make sure to subscribe to the FreeMelon Society and give this lecture a thumb up. For now, I'm going to go and enjoy the rest of my time here. I love you guys very much. Enjoy, and I'll talk to you very soon. Okay, take care.